Walk into any Texas Roadhouse today, and the atmosphere feels exactly as it has for over 3 decades. You are immediately hit by the aroma of freshly baked yeast rolls and honey cinnamon butter. The floor is still covered in peanut shells, and the sound of upbeat country music competes with the chatter of a packed dining room. It is a quintessentially American scene, a place that has long marketed itself as an analog fortress in a digital world. But look closer at the servers weaving through the crowded tables. Instead of the classic paper pads and ballpoint pens, they are now wielding sleek, handheld digital tablets. This is the first major crack in the traditionalist armor of a $12 billion steakhouse giant. Texas Roadhouse, led by Chief Executive Officer Gerald Morgan, has officially begun the nationwide rollout of Roadhouse Pay and handheld server devices. For most restaurant chains, this would be a minor footnote in a quarterly report. For Texas Roadhouse, it is a revolutionary shift that many thought would never happen. For 33 years, this company stood as a defiant holdout against tableside technology. While its competitors rushed to install screens and kiosks, Roadhouse remained committed to the human touch. They believed that digital interference would erode the very soul of the brand. Now, across more than 600 locations, that identity is fundamentally changing. The reason for this sudden pivot is not a desire to be modern, but a desperate need to balance record-breaking foot traffic with a tightening and expensive labor market. Wall Street did not just notice this change, they celebrated it. The company's stock price has recently reached record highs, rewarding a brand that once appeared stubborn but now looks remarkably strategic. Why would a brand built on anti-tech values suddenly surrender to the digital age? To understand the answer, we have to look back at the foundation of the company. In 1993, the late Kent Taylor founded Texas Roadhouse with a singular focus on what he called legendary food and legendary service. Taylor was a visionary who believed that the dining experience should be an escape from the complexities of modern life. He famously resisted anything that felt corporate or cold. For decades, this resistance was the secret sauce. While chains like Chili's and Olive Garden adopted Ziosk tablets years ago, Roadhouse refused. They feared it would kill the vibe. They wanted their servers to be performers, dancers, and friends to their guests, not just order takers behind a screen. This analog fortress strategy worked. Texas Roadhouse became one of the most successful casual dining brands in history, maintaining high customer loyalty by being the last authentic dining experience in America. But the post-pandemic world changed the math. The hospitality industry is currently facing a massive labor crisis. Wages are rising, and the pool of available workers is shrinking. At the same time, Texas Roadhouse is more popular than ever. The sheer volume of people waiting for a table has created a bottleneck that paper and pencil can no longer manage. Gerald Morgan and his team realized that their greatest strength, the lack of technology, was becoming their biggest liability. The servers were becoming overwhelmed. They were spending too much time walking back and forth to stationary computer terminals to enter orders, leaving guests waiting for refills and checks. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The transition to handheld tablets represents a pivot point in the history of the brand. Analysts who once viewed the company as stubborn have flipped the narrative overnight. They now see a company that is finally using technology to protect its humanity rather than replace it. The stock market has responded with an obsession over two specific metrics: table turns and order accuracy. Every minute saved by a server using a tablet is a minute that can be spent attending to a guest or turning a table for the next hungry family. Investors have started calling Texas Roadhouse the Netflix for steaks. This analogy might sound strange for a company that sells ribeyes and margaritas, but it refers to the company's consistent and predictable growth that seems to defy the broader trend known as the casual dining death. While other mid-priced chains are closing doors and losing foot traffic, Texas Roadhouse continues to expand. The introduction of Roadhouse Pay is seen as the final piece of the puzzle that will unlock even higher profit margins. By reducing the dead time between a guest finishing their meal and paying the check, the company can serve more people without building more restaurants. This efficiency is what Wall Street craves. They are looking at the data and seeing that locations with the new tech are outperforming those without it. The contradiction is fascinating. A brand that built its entire identity on being low-tech is now using high-tech tools to ensure that it can keep its doors open in a modern economy. The market sentiment has shifted from skepticism to full-blown enthusiasm. Hedge funds and institutional investors are now viewing the Roadhouse Pay rollout as a major buy signal. They recognize that Gerald Morgan is not trying to turn Texas Roadhouse into a fast food joint. He is trying to give his staff the tools they need to maintain the legacy Kent Taylor built. The challenge now is to see if the soul of the steakhouse can survive the transition. Can you keep the peanut shells and the line dancing while every server is staring at a screen? The financial results suggest the answer is a resounding yes. But the long-term impact on the human connection is something that both the company and its customers are still navigating. The analog fortress has opened its gates to the digital age, and the result is a $12 billion success story that is just getting started. For 33 years, the lack of tech was their greatest strength. Now they are proving that the right tech might be the only way to save their tradition. To understand how this shift is playing out on the dining room floor, we have to look closely at the dual strategy of the Roadhouse Pay system. This is not just about giving a server a shiny new gadget to show off to guests. It is a calculated and two-pronged attack on the friction that naturally occurs in a high-volume restaurant. The technology is divided into two distinct components that work in harmony. First, there are the handheld tablets that the servers now carry in their aprons. These devices are linked directly to the kitchen display systems and the bar. In the traditional model that existed for over 3 decades, a server would take an order on a paper pad, weave through a crowded dining room to a stationary computer terminal, and then wait for their turn to punch in the data, while other servers did the same. This created a massive amount of dead time and physical exhaustion. Now, the moment a guest says they want their ribeye cooked medium rare with a loaded baked potato, that information is transmitted to the kitchen instantly. The server does not have to leave the tableside to start the process. This might seem like a small change, but in a restaurant that serves thousands of people every week, those saved steps add up to miles of movement and hours of reclaimed productivity. It allows the server to stay in their zone, keeping an eye on drink levels and guest needs without the constant back-and-forth travel to a wall-mounted computer. The second part of the strategy is the digital payment kiosk located directly on the table. This is where the most significant efficiency gains are realized. Gerald Morgan has pointed out in several recent earnings calls that the most frustrating part of any dining experience is the wait for the check. You finish your meal, you are full and happy, and you are ready to head home. However, your server might be busy at another table or stuck in the kitchen. You wait 5 minutes for the bill to arrive, then another 5 for the server to take your credit card, and another 5 for them to bring back the receipt for you to sign. Texas Roadhouse found that by allowing guests to pay at their own pace using the tableside kiosk, they could save an average of 6 minutes per table turn. 6 minutes may not sound like a life-changing amount of time, but when you multiply that by the number of tables in a restaurant and the hundreds of locations across the country, it translates into millions of dollars in additional revenue every single quarter. It allows the restaurant to seat more families during the peak dinner rush without adding a single square foot of space to the building. This is the frictionless dining goal that the industry has been chasing for years, but Roadhouse is doing it without making the guest feel like they are at a fast food kiosk. There is a nuance here that many financial observers initially missed. These tablets and kiosks are not being used to replace the human workforce. In fact, Texas Roadhouse is one of the few national chains that has resisted the urge to automate the actual service or use robots to deliver food. The goal is what Gerald Morgan calls unburdening the staff. By taking away the clerical work of data entry and the mechanical work of running credit cards, the staff is free to do what they were hired to do. They can focus on hospitality. It allows the servers to spend more time interacting with guests and participating in the famous line dances that define the Roadhouse atmosphere. The technology acts as a silent assistant, handling the administrative data so the humans can handle the performance. While other chains use technology to cut staff and reduce their payroll, Texas Roadhouse is using it to make their current staff more effective and less stressed. So, why did the company choose this specific moment to pivot after 33 years of saying no? The answer lies in the hidden labor crisis that has gripped the American economy since the pandemic. Rising wages in the hospitality sector have made every second of a server's shift more expensive for the company. When labor costs go up, a business has two choices. They can raise their prices and hope the customers stay, or they can increase their internal efficiency. Texas Roadhouse has always been extremely protective of its value proposition. They offer high-quality steaks at a price that a working-class family can afford. To keep those prices stable while wages rise, they had to find a way to do more with the same amount of labor. Gerald Morgan recognized that the manual, paper-based system was finally reaching its breaking point. The sheer volume of customers was simply outstripping the ability of the staff to keep up using old-school methods. There is also a fascinating psychological element to the handheld order. These devices significantly reduce what is known as order lag and human error. When a server inputs an order directly at the table while speaking to the guest, the chances of a misunderstanding or a forgotten modification are slashed. This leads to higher customer satisfaction scores across the board. Even though some purists might argue that technology feels cold, guests are generally more satisfied when their food arrives exactly as they ordered it and their iced tea never runs dry. The market originally thought Roadhouse was falling behind its peers by staying analog for so long. In reality, the leadership was waiting for the technology to finally feel human enough. They waited until the hardware was durable enough to survive a greasy steakhouse environment, and the software was intuitive enough to feel like a natural extension of a conversation. This late adopter strategy gave Texas Roadhouse a unique advantage. They were able to watch the early adopter failures of other chains that implemented technology too aggressively. Some competitors lost their brand identity by turning their dining rooms into a sea of glowing screens that distracted from the meal and the company. By waiting, Roadhouse was able to implement a system that feels almost invisible. It does not dominate the table or the interaction, it simply facilitates the experience. This measured approach has become a case study for Wall Street on how to modernize a legacy brand without alienating the core customer base that loves the tradition. The data proves the narrative. Same-store sales have seen a measurable increase specifically in the locations where the tablets were introduced first. When investors saw that the brand could maintain its rowdy, high-energy culture while embracing modern digital tools, it triggered a massive wave of confidence. Major hedge funds began to see the company as a top-tier buy signal, viewing the Roadhouse Pay rollout as the key to long-term margin expansion. They have managed to turn a digital transition into a way to protect their traditional values, proving that sometimes the best way to stay the same is to change how you work behind the scenes. The transition to digital tools brings up a vital question about the people at the heart of the business. For a server at Texas Roadhouse, the introduction of handheld tablets is not just a change in workflow, it is a fundamental shift in their financial reality. In the traditional model, a server might manage 4 or 5 tables at once, limited by the time it takes to walk back and forth to a stationary computer. With the efficiency gained from Roadhouse Pay, that same server can often handle a larger section without feeling a decrease in their ability to provide high-quality service. Because the tablets handle the mundane task of processing payments and transmitting orders instantly, the time between a guest finishing their meal and the table being cleaned for the next family is drastically reduced. For the server, this means more table turns per shift. In the world of hospitality, more turns directly translate to more opportunities for tips. Early data from the rollout suggests that when guests feel in control of their departure, they tend to leave gratified and are often more generous with their gratuities. However, there is a delicate balance to maintain as the soul of the steakhouse evolves. The risk with any technology is that it can become a physical barrier between the guest and the host. If a server spends too much time looking at a glowing screen instead of looking the guest in the eye, the legendary service that Kent Taylor built over 33 years could begin to erode. Gerald Morgan and his leadership team are acutely aware of this danger. They have implemented training programs that emphasize the tablet as a tool of liberation, not a replacement for the human smile or the tableside conversation. The goal is to ensure that the human connection remains the primary product, while the technology remains a silent, invisible infrastructure. This shift also reflects a broader change in American consumer psychology. Over the last decade, we have been conditioned by grocery stores and fast food outlets to prefer a degree of self-service for routine tasks. There is a sense of empowerment that comes with being able to pay the bill and leave the moment you are ready, rather than waiting for a busy server to grant you permission to go. The modern diner values their time as much as their meal, and Texas Roadhouse has finally aligned its operations with that reality. From a purely financial perspective, the repercussions of this pivot are profound for the $12 billion giant. As Texas Roadhouse continues to expand its profit margins, it is proving to the rest of the industry that tradition and technology do not have to be enemies. The company is now on a path toward long-term margin expansion that was previously thought impossible for a high-volume, casual dining steakhouse. This success has created a powerful copycat effect across the landscape of American dining. Other traditional brands that once bragged about their lack of technology are now being forced to follow suit or risk extinction. If a competitor can turn a table 10 minutes faster while maintaining the same food quality, they have a mathematical advantage that cannot be ignored by the stock market. We are witnessing a quiet revolution where the analog fortress is being rebuilt with a digital foundation. Yet, the future of hospitality is facing a growing divide that will define the next decade. On one side, we have the rise of fully automated dining, where kiosks, mobile apps, and conveyor belts replace people entirely to save on labor costs. On the other side, we have the human-centric model that Texas Roadhouse is championing. It is a vision of the future where technology exists to make humans more present, not less. The question remains whether authenticity can truly be scaled with an algorithm. Can you maintain the rowdy, high-energy environment with its country music and line dancing when the backbone of the operation is a sophisticated software suite? The answer seems to be a resounding yes, as long as the focus remains on the guest experience rather than the technology itself. People do not wait 2 hours for a table because they want to use a tablet. They wait because they want to feel like they are part of something real. They want the fresh rolls, the hand-cut steaks, and the sense of community. The screens are just a way to get them to that experience faster and with fewer headaches. There is also the matter of operational risk. If the technology glitches or the wireless network fails during a Saturday night rush, does the legendary service brand crumble? The dependency on these digital tools creates a new kind of vulnerability that Kent Taylor never had to worry about in 1993. As we look ahead, the next steps for the brand will likely involve even deeper integrations. We may see artificial intelligence being used to predict kitchen bottlenecks before they happen, or personalized digital menus that remember a guest's favorite drink or steak temperature. But every innovation will be tested against the original vision of the company. If it does not enhance the food or the service, it likely will not be implemented. Texas Roadhouse did not change its values to please the analysts on Wall Street. Instead, it changed its tools to protect those values in a modern world that is faster and more expensive than ever before. It is a rare example of a company that understands its own soul well enough to know which parts are sacred and which parts can be upgraded. In the end, the financial world did not fall in love with a piece of hardware or a mobile application. They fell in love with a company that finally figured out how to make a machine feel like a handshake. It is a reminder that technology is at its best when it serves the human spirit rather than dominating it. By bridging the gap between the charm of the frontier and the efficiency of the 21st century, Gerald Morgan has ensured that Texas Roadhouse remains a dominant force. It turns out that you can keep the cowboy boots and the country music as long as you have the data to back it up. But the story of extreme efficiency in the food industry does not end with steaks. In fact, there is another company that has turned the simple act of serving a chicken sandwich into a masterclass of industrial engineering. To understand how a drive-thru can move faster than a Formula One pit crew, we have to look at the hidden secrets of the Chick-fil-A efficiency machine.